each and every one of you present here. On behalf of Quality and Accreditation Institute, on behalf of Quality and Accreditation Institute, it's a pleasure to welcome you all to today's live webinar series session, The Gold Standard Excellence ART Law and Accreditation. Session is part of a live webinar series by the Quality and Accreditation Institute, basically aimed at bringing clarity, compliance, and quality excellence, evolving landscape of healthcare. Today's discussion focuses on a critical and time session law and quality in assisted reproductive technology under the ART Act 2021. Expectations are increasingly stringent for our clinics and stakeholders, not only to understand the legal framework, but also to align with robust accreditations and trust, patient safety, and drive sustainable excellence. This contest, we will also explore how accreditation through the quality and accreditation scheme can provide strong quality advantage and enhance the overall credibility of ART services. For the next 45 minutes, we will explore.
Sorry to interrupt, Ms. Ashwarya. I think there is a network issue. If you switch off your camera, so there would not be any disturbance.
Sure, sir. So for the next 45 minutes, we will explore why study treatment is crucial for ART clinics. Key legal provisions include the ART Act 2021 and how accreditation can serve as a strategic advantage. We will conclude this particular live session through question answer session, so feel free to share your questions. We are privileged to have with us two distinguished speakers with us today. Dr. B.K. Rana, an advocate Dr. Himanshu, Rana is a founder and CEO of QAI, Quality and Accreditation Institute. Over 25 years of experience in quality development and accreditation patient safety, Rana was former director and CEO in charge of NABH, Quality Council of India. Is my voice clear?
Now it's clear at the moment.
So our first faculty is Dr. Bhupinder Kumar Rana, the founder and CEO of QAI, Quality and Accreditation Institute. He has over 25 years of experience in quality, standard development, accreditation, and patient safety. Dr. Rana is the former director and CEO in charge of NABH, Quality Council of India. His visionary leadership transforms healthcare quality framework in the
Ashwarya,
country.
your voice is not clear. It's breaking. So let me take this up. Okay. So can you stop sharing your slide, please? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, everyone, for joining this very webinar on issues related to art, center accreditation, and some of the regulatory requirements in place as per Indian law. With me, I have joined by Advocate Divyanshu Priyam, who is a very trusted advisor to many hospitals, including IVF hospitals, on regulatory aspect related to art law. And he has been practicing this for last couple of years and bring entrepreneurial insight as co-founder of Crisco India Limited. And he has been invited to several events and conferences on this topic. So welcome, Divyanshu, with me. Okay, so let's start. So let me open the floor with some of the background about art center accreditation advantages, which QI brings to all the art centers, and I would cover a brief of it. So QI is an internationally recognized accreditation body for last several years, and we offer several accreditation program, including ART or IVF accreditation program. We cover all the journey of the patient, including pre-hospital and hospital and post-hospital care through several programs. For example, we have standards for home care, telehealth, and ambulance service providers, which we have developed for the first time in India. And in addition, we have several other programs for various types of healthcare facilities, starting from a clinic to a tertiary care hospitals, and then some of the specialized accreditation programs like IVF or bone marrow transplant, hair transplant clinic, dialysis, stroke, and so on and so forth. And many of these, which are highlighted in yellow color, are the first time we have developed in India. And then moving on to the post hospital care, again, we have standard for telehealth, home care, ambulance, which is common to pre-hospital. But in addition, we have another set of standards which called transition care, which are utilized by patient coming out of the hospital, not going to homes, but they receive long-term care or rehabilitation in a center called transition care. And some standards to support social care like green healthcare facility, vision centers, care homes, and some of the hotels and homestay standards which we developed over the last couple of years. As I mentioned, we are nationally and internationally recognized. We are recognized by CGHS, Government of India, for empanelment of hospitals for CGHS empanelment purposes as equivalent to NABH accreditation. So we offer, the opportunity for healthcare centers, including hospitals, eye hospitals, imaging centers, dental centers, and many other types of organizations which are, considered for CGHS empanelments. Some of our clients, specifically for ART IVF Center Accreditation Program, we have around 60 centers across the country and one in Nepal coming from these organizations. And the largest client is Indira Hospital, Indira IVF hospitals at the moment, around 45, 46 centers from across the country, and then a couple of others from, say, Apollo, Oasis, Nova, Motherhood, multiple centers we have accredited so far. Coming to the topic, why we need a program for art center in terms of accreditation or quality improvement. uh, we keep hearing a lot of noise around that there are errors happening, and it's not just in IVF or art center, but in all types of medical institution, medical errors keep happening, and many of them are very much preventable. So when the things are preventable, why we are not able to prevent? So accreditation becomes a tool of preventing such harms to patients, preventing such medical errors happening around the world. And if you look at IVF centers or art centers, some of the clips I have put on your screen is about what has happened in the past. And these are some of the examples for, say, inside IVF mix-ups, and that left women carrying embryos that were not there. So somebody else embryos transplanted to some others. Georgia women's use fertility clinic for implanting wrong embryo after she birthed another couple's baby. Legal and ethical issues around IVF centers. So these are the things which keep happening, and I'm sure you would agree that they are very much, very, very much preventable. These things should not happen, and particularly in an area like which is very sensitive. So, what role QI accreditation standards put in for improving quality, patient safety, and outcomes in an art center? So, if you look at how quality is defined through World Health Organization, is it should be safe, it should be effective, it should be efficient, it should be timely, equitable, no difference um, between the patients coming from different backgrounds. It should be integrated. Whatever clinical teams need to be talk to each other, they need to bring on a holistic approach to individual patients, and most importantly, people centered, which means patient in the center, then the family around. So it's not just an individual patient, but also the family need to be considered. So this is the definition of quality by WHO, having these 7 pillars for often. And how we define patient safety, and again, taking the definition from WHO, Patient Safety Action Plan, which was issued in 2020. It says that 2020-2030 is a decade of patient safety. So patient safety has a global agenda, find a place in not only WHO, but different ministries of health in different part of the world, including India. So patient safety is a framework of organized activities that creates cultures, processes, procedures, behaviors, technologies, and environments in healthcare that consistently and sustainably lower risks, reduce the occurrence of avoidable harm, make errors less likely, and reduce impact of harm when it does occur. So it catches the sense of safe care in a healthcare institution to provide a framework. If you look at patient safety areas in an art and IVF clinic or center, certain things are very basic. For example, patient identification. Why a patient received the wrong embryos, the wrong, things happen to that because of identification. Medication safety is another area, and I think medication safety is the largest chunk amongst all the medical errors happening. So medication errors are actually the second largest in amongst the medical errors. Wrong medication, wrong route, wrong doses, wrong patient. So all these happen, and then surgical safety, wrong surgeries, wrong places, infection happening, connected to infection prevention and control policies, and prevention of falls. They may also occur in hospital, including IVF centers. Diagnostic safety, yes, wrong diagnosis, misdiagnosis, they keep happening. And these are some basics in all healthcare facilities, but specific to art, ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, because of a lot of medications given, multiple pregnancies. This is one of the common area of concern. Wrong identification or mishandling of gametes or embryos, cryo storage failures, not maintaining the desired temperature, wrong testing leading to wrong results, and then wrong interpretation, long-term health risks including birth defects and complications when a baby is born because of some neglects or concern during the period. As an outcome, what standards help in supporting all the 3 pillars of accreditation: structures, process, and outcome? In terms of structures, you need to have a right kind of environment, a right kind of equipment, and right kind of competence in terms of human resources. And obviously, the processes, including very basic patient registration, semen collection, ovum pickup, fertilization, storage, and transfer, etc. And what it leads to outcomes. And if you have things in place in terms of structure and processes, very much controlled, very much standardized, then your outcomes are bound to happen correctly, and desirable outcomes happen. So it may be in terms of good clinical outcomes, good clinical improvements, functional ability, which is on the positive side, and obviously safe care for the patients. In term processes, patient registration is going good. So no wrong identification, correct semen collection, identification, correctly done ovum pickup, fertilization, storage of embryos, gametes, and embryo transfer. So everything goes well if they are standardized. And in terms of outcomes, some of the examples I try to put in here in front of you is clinical pregnancy rate per cycle goes up. So if you have things in place in terms of structures and processes, so your outcomes become better. So the best outcome for any IVF or arts clinic is clinical pregnancy success rate per cycle. So it goes up, implantation rate goes up, multiple pregnancy rate goes down, live birth rate per cycle per transfer, which is actually a gold standard for any IVF clinic, is going up. Singleton live birth rate, rather than multiple pregnancies and birth goes up, miscarriage rate goes down, complications goes down, preterm birth rate goes down, fertilization rate goes up, and cryopreservation survival rate goes up. So there are indicators, there are parameters which need to be gone up as an outcome of the best practices, a good infrastructure, good competence in the center, and some need to go down, which are not correct. So this is how the outcomes are actually improved in a center which is following standardized protocol standards, which we call an accreditation standard. So that's how, if you want to really achieve those things in terms of really good improvement, uh, you need to follow standards, and the standards plays an important role in improving your quality, your outcomes, and making patient more safe. If you look at this is standard which we have developed in 2017, and which is now the second edition in the practice. It is having a framework which is defined in terms of chapters, standards, and criterion. And these criterion is basically the measurable component of the standard which are given in the framework. So this is the framework of second edition of QI accreditation standard for art clinics or centers. There are 10 chapters. Each chapter has a defined number of standards, and then each standard is divided into a couple of criterion. And so it's about governance and leadership, how the center is governed, how the leadership is functioning, and how the center is really make sure that things are going as they should be. And then human resource management, starting from what you need, how many you need, and recruitment criteria, selection criteria, competency mapping, selection, and then ongoing monitoring of competency, evaluation, and so on and so forth. And then facility and risk management in terms of physical facility, equipment required, conditions of environment maintained is defined in FRM. And then how the information is collected. Actually, first, what you need as an information, how that information is collected, stored, and disseminated to the interested parties. And when you do no longer need that information, how you dispose that off. So it's talk about IMS. And then continuous quality improvement, each chapter which provide a guidance to the centers in terms of defining performance indicators, both structures and processes, as well as an outcome. And then patient-centric care start from chapter 6, which is about patient assessment and care, how the patients are assessed for their needs, and based on those needs identified during assessment, a care plan is developed and then followed and monitored over a period of time. And then rights and education about patients, then medication management and safety, surgical care and safety, those patients who undergo surgical procedures, how they need to be taken care of. And then last but not the least is in hygiene and infection control in the center to prevent infections in the patients. So these are the stand chapters, basically 1 to 10, and then 100 standards and 543 criteria, which gives the entire standard to us. Now, in terms of role, accreditation standards plays is about ensuring compliance to regulatory requirements, whether it's requirement coming from basic Clinical Establishment Act, which is the basic and a clinical facility must have registered for and under, and then Assisted Reproductive Technology Art Act, which has been recently published by Government of India and being implemented by different states. PCP NDT, biomedical waste, and DNC. So all these applicable regulations, because as part of accreditation, there's a requirement that all applicable regulatory statutory requirement must be in place. So it ensures that you have all these. It helps in improving quality through different performance indicators. It ensures safe care, as I just narrated you in giving things that how you can really measure your quality and ensure safety to your patients. And obviously, better outcomes in terms of in certain indicators, which I have highlighted in a previous slide in terms of rates gone up and gone down. In terms of the process, if someone is interested, it's a very transparent, homogenized process which we have documented, starting from self-assessment against the set of standards, then filing an application, a review of application package, and then obviously carrying out the assessment of the center by sending a team of experts who conduct the assessment, generate a report, and then go into the next stage of review of reports. And if there are any gaps identified, and the center is given a defined time to address those gaps, and then go into the accreditation committee for their review. I'm sorry, and recommendations to the board for accreditation. So this happens for 3 years, and there is a mid-cycle surveillance assessment somewhere in the middle of 3 years, from somewhere from 15 to 18 months. So this is about uh, how standards plays a role in improving quality, improving safety, improving the outcomes in an IVF center, and ensure that things are done as they should be done. So we'll take any questions at the end. If you have any questions, we will be happy to take. So thank you. With this, I complete my part of presentation, and now I request uh, my colleague Divyanshu to take the second session of this webinar on regulation. So over to you, Divyanshu. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for this very beautiful presentation. I am Divyanshu Priyam, and we will start. Why was this regulation necessary? So, we are a law firm based out of Delhi, and we provide our services across India. And we are already consulting with almost 15 to 20% of the clinics across India. And now we'll start. Why was this required? I will switch off my video because network is bandwidth is low. Uh, why was this required in the first place? So nobody likes government poking nose into their business. But since the EY report and everybody states that there's huge expansion in India's fertility industry because of declining fertility rate, rapid expansion of ART clinics. We saw massive explosion of fertility clinics and sperm banks, hundreds of them. The science grew faster than any law could keep up with. So this act came into picture to regulate the practices of the clinics that were there. There was absence of unified legal framework. There's no single comprehensive law. ICMR guideline existed, uh, but they were just mere advisories. They did not have teeth to bite when any patient suffered or anyone was exploited. So that was the need of the hour, and hence this act came to safeguard the interest of both the parties, the doctors as well as the patients. There were huge variations. How the consent was taken, how donors were managed, how patients were informed. The system was fragmented. There were no proper set of uh, consent that were given by the ICMR. Even that were given were not properly followed by the clinics. So hence, fragmented, unregulated, risk-prone ecosystem, not just for patients but for doctors as well, who had no clarity on what was legally acceptable. Donor exploitation was there, negligence in performing surgical procedures of harvesting eggs from a woman's body. Egg retrieval was done from young unmarried girls in many parts of the country earlier. Now, since the act has come into picture, a lot has changed. Sex selection procedures of ART clinics. Earlier, PCPNTT was there, but sex selection, PGT testing, etc. So this act clearly states that this is an extension to the PCPNTT Act. Uh, Also, there were multiple embryo implantations, ART bank advertising for Caucasian donor gametes or foreign gametes. Mixing of sperm was there. Commercialization of ovum sperm donations. Exploitation by the foreigners for surrogates, etc. So this act came into hand in hand with Surrogacy Regulation Act as well. Now, the ART Act 2021 comes. Now that we have understood why the law was needed, let's look at what it actually does. Mandatory registration and licensing. So every art clinic and every art bank in India must be registered. You cannot operate without a valid registration. And this registration is not one-time formality, it is continuous. It has to be followed for ART, it is every 5 year. And the PNDT department, who was earlier dealing with mostly the people who were earlier dealing with the PNDT, have now taken charge of ART as well. So they might come here for inspections, and they might be, keeping an eye on you for the same. Think it like a license to practice medicine. You wouldn't allow an unlicensed doctor to operate. Similarly, no unlicensed ART clinic can operate in India now. Secondly, institutional oversight mechanism. The ART Act creates two levels of oversight. At the central level, a national ART board, and at the state level, state ART board. And there is also another board called appropriate authority, so which takes care of the licensing, etc., of the clinics in states as well as in union territories. Now, defined operational standards. The law prescribes exactly what qualification your doctor, embryologist, andrologist, what infrastructure your lab must have. So you have to have a set of equipments in your lab, then only you will be able to get yourself registered as a clinic. It is a minimum standard for every clinic in India. ART clinics now operate with a formally regulated legal ecosystem. Gone are the days of doing whatever you want and hoping no one notices. And it is best that only people with good practice, good infrastructure, good ecosystem excel in this industry. Governance, ethics, and clinical accountability. Now we're on slide 2. The ART Act is not just about registration, licensing. It goes deeper into ethics, into the fundamental rights of patient, donors, and children brought through ART. So, there's another angle to it. Now, the Act also wants to make sure the child, it gives directly the right of a biological child. Even you have one donor or both donor gametes. Regulation of donor practices. Donor cannot be exploited anymore. The law mandates that mandatory screening before any donation, protection of donor identity and confidentiality, limits on number of times a person can donate to prevent exploitation. So only you can donate your sperm or your ova only once in your lifetime, and that too you are given an insurance in lieu of that to take care of yourselves for the next 12 years for any post complications that may arise. Commercialization of gametes or embryos is banned now. So even there's a section 29 under the Act which clearly states that only your embryos or gametes can be transferred from one clinic to another for transfer, for self-use. Now we have a structured consent framework. So ART rules have a set formal forms starting from form 1 to 14, and how the clinic will maintain the register, what consents are to be taken, what practices are to be followed. Patient must be told the full picture in advance: risk, benefit, success rate, alternative, consent must be voluntary, free from pressure or coercion, and critically, patients have the right to withdraw consent. at any stage. So this gives doctors another protective layer that earlier the litigation was also on the rise that हमारा success नहीं हुआ, आप हमको refund कीजिए. So now the consent form given by the national board in itself states that there is no guarantee that a live birth would take place. There is no guarantee uh, that it would result in pregnancy. Now there's prohibition on unethical practices. This is where the draw means the law draw hard lines. Sex selection strictly prohibited. Even you have to do for PGT. So now, if you would have heard the Haryana, since the sex ratio of Haryana went down. So what they did was, even if you have to do PGT testing of any embryo, you have to take permission from the medical board appropriate authority, district appropriate authority. Sale of embryo and gametes banned, false advertising, misleading straight success rate prohibited, exploitation of donors in any form punishable. Ethics in ART no longer advisory, it is legally enforceable. Now, what happens if you do not follow this laws? What are the real consequences? First, regulatory enforcement. Authorities have always the power to inspect, audit, investigate any art clinic or bank. If you are non-compliant, see, your registration can be suspended or cancelled. For serious violations, the clinic can be shut down, records, equipment, materials can be seized. Moreover, non-maintenance of records is also an offense. So you have to keep the records for 10 years for an IVF and 25 years for surveillance. So you have to maintain their records. You have to maintain the affidavits. Recently, the national board also started the national registry, and I'm sure all of you, all the stakeholders would have gone to the training and learned how to put in the data in that registry. Penalties, there are severe penalties, financial penalties for contraventions of the act. Imprisonment is also there for second time, third time. Liability extends beyond the clinic. Doctors, staff, management can all be held personally accountable. Patient rights and remedies. Patients have the right to safe, ethical, and transparent treatments. They can access their records. They can seek grievance redressal. So, according to this act, there should be a grievance redressal committee inside the clinic first. They can claim so that you can first redress the grievance of the patient at the clinic level. Then they can move on to another to the government department or other. Compliance is no longer optional. It is real duty with real consequence. Let's get more specific. Let's talk about registration because this is where actual compliance begins. Registration is the legal authorization required for an ART clinic or bank to operate in India. Without it, you don't exist. So you would fall under the category of non-registered clinic and you would have to face consequences. You cannot see patients, you cannot perform procedures, you cannot do OPU, you cannot, you can only consult with your clinical establishment act and everything. Now, every art clinic, every art bank, no exceptions, no operation without prior approval. Now the deadline for getting into the getting without the registration has expired. Registration is not just permission, it grants official status under the ART Act 2020. You become a recognized entity in the eyes of law. Registration validates your infrastructure, your staff, your process. It certifies that you meet the prescribed standards. This is your foundation. Everything else builds on top of it. So there's a national registry. So now Nowadays, whenever I see a lot of patients come to me for consultation, so I see that they have done their homework. They go to national registry, they check whether this clinic where I'm going to is actually registered or not. So this is very important. Once registration tells you in the system, the ART Act sets eligibility requirements across categories. Prescribed ART clinics, eligibility of ART clinics is there. Prescribed infrastructure standards, the building, the room, the equipment, a fully equipped embryology laboratory. The embryologist has to have had 500 procedures done, 500 pickups done. Uh, for gynecologists, it's 50. For embryologists, it's 500. Compliance with clinical and safety protocols, valid registration and licensing, adherence to regulatory guidelines. You cannot just rent a clinic and start doing it. The law says you must prove you are ready. Eligibility of ART banks, proper storage facility should be there for any ART bank, maintaining correct condition, safe, sane, uh, condition, mandatory donor screening. So you have the government has also prescribed the test that needs to be done before specific test that needs to be done before examination of a donor, HIV type 1, 2, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, syphilis, VDRL, everything. Let's go down. Uh, it is it is not enough to comply once during registration. The law demands continuous adherence to all provisions of ART Act, compliance with both national and ART boards, mandatory periodic inspections and audits, continuous operational compliance, meaning everyday matters. All the consent forms are to be now necessarily all the donor data needs to be necessarily put on the national registry. Documentation, record style, everything is crucial. Complete patient records, donor screening, eligibility documentation, consent forms, treatment records, all properly filled. So, as Lex Cream as a clinic, we are as a law firm, we also do the legal audits of the clinics. And let's assume that, and why is this important? Because courts, let's assume that you're doing everything right and the patient comes to you, patient puts you in litigation. So courts rely on records, not claims. If a patient sues you, if a regulator investigates you, they will not care what you say. They will look at what you wrote down. Your documentation is your defense. Your maintenance of record is your defense. Reporting and regulatory obligation, you have to submit reports to regulatory authorities on schedule, maintain transparency in clinical outcomes. So national board also asks these district boards, these state boards on the result and the procedures taken place. Report violations or illegalities immediately. Grounds for disqualification from eligibility can be operate without a valid registration, fail to comply with at any point of time. Let's assume that the doctor who was assigned, who was on whose name the license was taken in the first place, who fulfilled the criteria of 50 ovum pickups and the procedures. If she goes away, then your license is. So you have to continuously comply with the ART Act provisions. Your decision. What ART 2020 changed fundamentally and permanently? It created a legal foundation, mandatory registration, additional oversight, defined operational standards. It embedded ethics into the law, protecting donors, protecting patients, protecting the clinics, protecting the peers and the false claims. It created enforcement, real penalties, real consequences, personal liability, and also defined eligibility, what it means to qualify, how to stay qualified, and what happens if you fail. Uh, as far as my part is there for today, I am done with my presentation. You may ask any questions if you have.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much, Divyanshu, for a very nice presentation. Me telling very complex issue in a very convenient way is really highly appreciate. Means a person like me can also understand what does it mean now compared to better I understood earlier. So now it's the floors are open for any questions for either Divyanshu or for myself. Being the silence, let me ask one question, Divyanshu. Um, as you
Yes.
mentioned, you may be receiving, queries from patients and as well as from Art Center. What is the most difficult, I would say, query you face in general? Means uh, by the patients. What is the most specific thing patients looking for as a perspective from the legal perspective from you?
So, most patient perspective is that whether I'm in right hands or not, whether the paperwork that I'm signing protects my rights as well as the right of the donor that is coming in for the treatment. So patient always see the patient when he's going or she's going to the IVF clinic. So they have already faced a lot in their life. Um they have at least have had at least 4 5 years of their marriage. They have been trying 3 4 years of their marriage. They have been trying. So they want to be sure that everything is right. They are uh, they are given the right gametes. They are given the right embryos is implanted. They are the clinic is accredited. Clinic has a registration. Doctor is qualified. Embryologist is qualified. They have the same system infrastructure. Everything is there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There's a question whether doctor need to inform authorities when they leave a center.
Yes, sir. They have to. Uh, if they're leaving a center, so let's assume that a clinic took license on their
Name.
experience, on their name and their experience. So what happens is that when you're going for the registration, you have to give the details of 50 pickups. So those 50 pickups are yours. The clinic is getting registration on your back. So you have to inform the authorities
So
before leaving.
is it the doctor need to inform or is the center need to inform?
Center and doctor both should
Both.
inform, sir.
Okay. Good. Good. Another question. What are the consent which are mandatory?
So there's a list of consents at the back of the ART rules. I would all the participants. I would share it with you. You can share it with them, sir. So there are
Sure.
forms that needs to be forms in the ART rules itself. It needs to be signed as per the requirement, and it is also a duty of the clinic. I'll also share the. Uh, Give me a minute, please. I'll also share the uh, 24, section 24, as well as maintain the following forms. 13F, uh, 13F of ART rules 2021 clearly demarcates what are the necessary forms.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
13F.
There is another question. Very interesting. If 10 oocytes are retrieved from a patient, can 5 be fertilized with husband semen and 5 be donor with donor semen is stored separately?
So there's no specific uh, regulation to this. If doctor feels that, but it has to be stage by stage only. If doctor thinks that the husband semen will work, then he or she should fertilize the same with the husband semen first. And then if the result does not come, then only they should move for the other options.
Okay. Another question, is there a qualification as per Art Act to perform embryo biopsy? Biopsy, I don't think is covered in this act.
So biopsy for this, I think there's genetic lab. It is under PNDT Act, sir.
Because biopsy goes for diagnostic for something, so it goes to
So,
the
but but
laboratory.
but the clinics do biopsy, embryo biopsy. They do, and they send it. So it is allowed, sir,
But who
for
who
PGT
performs? So
testing, etc.
is it the
So
gynecologist does it, or
yes, sir, it's a gynecologist.
it's okay, gynecologist, because they are. If we have an old patient, suppose 2012, come to us and want embryos shifted from a center which is UK based, but now taken over by Indian brand, so or they can procure their embryos. Uh,
No, ma'am. There's a specific bar on import of embryos. The export can be done, but there is specific bar on import of embryos.
we need to follow that.
Yes, sir. After the act came into picture, the incoming of embryos from outside was banned, sir.
Great, great.
Only only the clinics, uh, only the patient who take permission from the national board under section 29 of the act can transfer from one clinic to another or from one nation to another, but only with the permission, sir.
All the
That
permission.
too
Thank you.
only export, no import, sir.
Great. I think there's a question from Preeti you can ask. And Divanshu, I'm sorry, and all the colleagues, I have to leave because now I have a meeting is starting, another one. So I just to
Not
rush.
an issue,
But
sir.
you
Not an
continue,
issue,
you
sir.
continue, you have time. So you continue with the
I'll take the
conversation. Thank
question,
you.
sir, and
Can we
then
have
we'll
one group
end the session, sir.
photograph with you there?
Sir, with this DPDP Act coming in force now, how much of
Hmm.
it is really on ground, and how much are we doing to, or any audits are being done, or maybe sensitization or something like that? Because that is quite an act which is coming up.
When the DPDP Act has been enforced, that is true, and it is completely sensitization is there, and for the clinics, we do counsel clinics on that as well, that how data should be processed, and it will have some teeth. Now the clinics and the people are ready. Matlab, they are not. They were not earlier ready, but they are quietly, getting to be understanding the situation now, getting to know their rights. So it will be having a very good teeth, and the what do you call it? The penalty in it is
Yes.
also very huge.
Huge penalty. So that's what my next
Yes.
question was. Since we
Hmm.
are having this role of seeing this clinics enforcement of this law and all, shouldn't we be
Hmm.
actually now sensitizing these clinics wherein we go? Because I think, though we know that okay, in near future it is going to come, but somehow this is something which the clinics are yet not ready to face it. What can we do about it and be ready for things which are
And
going to come?
we can only inform them. We cannot force them. Uh, uh, we cannot force anybody to accept anything until unless w- w- when did uh, uh, when did people get into this specific ART when this
Correct.
was specifically informed. So there is no board, and there are also tribunals, boards under that act.
Right.
Those boards are not in place right now.
Right,
Once they
sir.
come into place, people will
Will fall into this, or
start,
maybe we can start
will also
having,
fall into
okay,
line.
yes sir, maybe QA can start adding those standards for this.
We can do that.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Kalyani is asking, can patient transfer their embryos from one center to another? What is the procedure? Ma'am, they can definitely transfer gametes from one center to another. There's a procedure on the ARTA and Surrogacy Board, National ARTA and Surrogacy Board's portal. They have to take permission, they have to take the consent from the clinic which is holding it, and they have to take consent from the clinic where it has to be transferred. Then they can online, after there's a affidavit format for everything, then they can mail it to the ART board, and then after the permission from the national board, they can transfer their gametes or embryos from one clinic to another. So this is covered under section 29, and it can be looked up at ART and Surrogacy Board portal online. So there's a specific query there, the embryo transfer or gamete transfer. Thank you very much, ma'am. I hope I get to see you in the next session.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. It was a great, insightful session. And we'll just conclude this by a closing photograph, and then we'll meet
Sure.
another. Yeah, thank you so much. I request everyone in the meeting to just please open up their cameras. Okay, on the count of three, I request everyone to just give a good smile. Okay, because this is going to be on our website and the social media platforms. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today's session.
Thank you.